direct. Actually got the ball. Good afternoon, Tottenham fans around the world. Good evening, good morning, wherever you're tuning in from. Hopefully you're all having a great day. Your two boys are back from their escapades over there, supporting Tottenham for that Crystal Palace no-show. It was an absolutely horrific day. You know, I went over there thinking the atmosphere is going to be a bit juvenile. You know, we're just going to be points thrown everywhere, everyone putting their arm around each other. We're going to Bilbao. It was absolutely flat. It was dead, combined by the performance. And then where we were sitting in the North Stand, you know your boy doesn't like the sun. We got pelted for 90 minutes with that as well. So all in all, it was an absolute shit show of a day. However, it's still not going to stop me from getting excited in the build-up to Bilbao. We are 6 days out. We've got a few things to talk about tonight. So welcome back to the Hotspur Social with your boys Dave, Jack, Sean, Johnny, and Sam has not been replaced. Sam has gone away to the USA for his brother's graduation over there. So if they're tuning in, congratulations. And he will be back with us. Maybe not even next week, actually, because he's out in Bilbao. So we'll have to see. Might have to check up for a week or two. But we are going to get more or less straight into it. Make sure we use these two guys' time as valuable as we can. So over to you, Jack. Let's go. And I'll start bringing up the comments as we go along. If you want to get involved, put your comments in. Do what you need to do. We'll bring them up as we go along. You can grab yourself a membership, gift them out to other people, or put in super chats. That's your choice. But all we do ask is if you enjoy the content, smash that like button.
I had a good enough time, after the game, Dave, so much so that I had fallen asleep, on the train. Clearly, that's how good of a time I had. But I agree with you. It didn't necessarily, have the atmosphere, that we might have wanted. But, we still made up for it the best way we could.
Jack, actually, we've got to mention Jack went viral. The West Ham fans, caught Jack. All asleep.
You know what, Jack? I got to tell you, I got sent that clip by about 20 people, and I had no idea because you were slumped that it was you until someone told me the next day. But
no, it wasn't me, Johnny. You're right. It actually wasn't me. It was just my.
It could have been anyone, Jack.
Yeah. Could have been any guy. Could have been any sunburnt man that day.
It was AI, Jack.
Yeah.
Just quickly before we start the show, I saw the comments saying, "Have you replaced Sam? What do you do to him, Sean?" And I was like, "What does that mean?" So I looked at the thumbnail. I see the picture you've got of me. You could have picked a nicer picture, boys. I look like a testicle with a hat on. It's ridiculous. Like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm going to send you a slightly nicer picture than the one that you picked.
The model shoot, Sean. Give us the model shoot.
We've never claimed art was our forte, you know what I mean? So we let ourselves down on that one. But you know what? In all seriousness, though, there was people that made time out of their day to come and see us. You guys know who you are. There's a few to mention. Really appreciate every single one of you. That actually did make the trip. Of course, being over there with Jack, Nick, and Dermot for the weekend as well was fun. And look, it was good to be in and around the stadium, this season and that. Just maybe the game in itself was disappointing, but all in all, it was a good trip. Your boy maybe got a bit more colour. I'm not as Casper White as I usually am, so that's always a good thing. But look, Jack, over to you. Let's get going, my man.
Yeah, let's get it going like you wanted, Dave. Kulusevski, of course, is out for the Europa League final. Spurs are pretty much missing all of their creative players now, with Maddison and Bergvall out of the team. Given Ange's preference, though, for attacking on the front foot football and his reliance on technical players to execute that sort of attack-minded play style, does Ange have to consider maybe some adjustments to his play style for the final at large? So maybe to you, Shawnee, on this one, so it's good to have you back on these shows. I mean, is Ange, the question he's always asked, right? Will he have to change or adapt his play style? I think this question comes up again here with Kulusevski, Maddison, and Bergvall all out, all of the technical sort of creative attack-minded players.
Yeah, it's been a topic of the week, hasn't it? I haven't really landed on what I'd like to see at the moment with regards who do you play in the 10.
4-4-2, knock it long kind of thing.
Well, I mean, like there's an argument to say that without any creativity that you could certainly do with just using a switch in the 6 and just pumping it into the channels. And if you're going to do that, you're going to need to have your creativity from the touch lines, right? To be able to take players on, which if you're going to go down that path, then arguably you might not want to see Sonny in there because of late he hasn't exactly had the same take on acceleration speed as other players that maybe don't have the same gravitas, the same kind of the historical value, but they're fitter. It's a real conundrum for him. And Johnny and I have been chewing this over with Henry this morning. We are Tottenham TV yesterday, chewing it over for like a 2-hour show. And I genuinely don't really know what the best option is here, Jack. I feel like in terms of the strategy, it probably makes you now lean into we were talking about this earlier, going like just sort of inviting the pressure on and seeing if you can pick them off with like Brennan Johnson or someone like that. But like I say, it really isn't ideal in any way, shape, or form. I know people are saying that Bergval's back or he's in training, but I think Ange kind of poo-pooed that earlier when he said no, there's no acceleration in his timeline. He's just back. He's just out of his boot, so he's not ready. So it really does. For me, I think that with Kulusevski and Maddison out and Bergval, obviously you're going to play Bentancur and Bissouma, assuming that there's no more hiccups tomorrow night and they don't play. But then in that additional spot, I mean, like I'm sure we'll talk about it now. There's like 3 or 4 different options, but none of them are pretty, right? I would probably go with Solanke in the 9 and put Richarlison in the 10 because I think that Solanke could probably emulate more of a deeper lying kind of false 9 kind of role than some of the others. I don't really feel comfortable seeing Sonny in the 9, and I don't think that Matisse Tell's done it. I don't think Mikey Moore's got enough minutes. It's too much of a a deep ocean, deep end to throw him in at. So there's options, but not many. But I'm sure we'll chew it over. But yeah, it's a real hit, mate. It's a really, really big blow, and I'm not really landed on what I want to see just yet. But in terms of the strategy, I'd say it's probably better rather than doing any version of like keep the ball and just 70% it again, like we failed in the league. I think it's better to kind of emulate what we've been doing more in European football over the last couple of months. And
yeah, I mean,
duplicate that.
To mention Sonny and Richarlison is also a fair point, where Sonny probably will play in this final, but then Richarlison should not be dropped. He's been, probably one of the keys to us even getting there. But Johnny, I mean, he hates being asked this question, Ange Postecoglou. Will he adapt? Will he adjust? I think it's, once again, though, probably does need to be asked, right? With all of those players, all the technical-minded players out of the midfield and not in contention.
Listen, the one thing we know about Ange Postecoglou, the truth eludes him, right? I mean, the amount of times that he said, so-and-so is just a knock. So-and-so's only out for a week. So-and-so won't be back. And they come back. So
I wish the Mole did the press conference and we would have gotten better answers. Well,
listen, look, he said after don't worry, it's nothing about Decky. He just got a light knock. What happened with Decky was literally right in front of me. He went to on the right-hand side, he burst into the box, went to shoot, and his shot was blocked, foot on foot. And he definitely felt it because he winced, and I could see him. He didn't go down, but he felt his ankle, felt his knee, and then he carried on. And a couple of minutes later, Manuz went right through the back of him and he went down. And you just knew he was lying there. I could see he was in a lot of pain. And I didn't believe a minute of it. But he turned around and he said, it's just a light knock. There's nothing wrong with him. We checked him, nothing to worry about. And there we are, 2 days later, he's having an operation. So when he says that Bergval hasn't progressed at all, I've got to be honest with you, I don't actually believe it. Look, he's not guaranteed to start. He's not guaranteed to start, that's for sure. But he is on grass solo. I had that confirmed to me yesterday. I haven't had a latest update today. But it doesn't mean he's going to make it. He hasn't joined any group sessions. But with the days to go, it's not out of the realms of possibility. So let's keep that. But for me, there's only one way. It's a war of attrition for this game. And I personally believe that solid formation, counter-attacking football is the way to go. We need winners. We need experience. We need players that are ready for battle. And Richarlison's ready for battle. Solanke's ready for battle. Porro's ready for battle. Bentancur's ready for battle, and so is Cuti Romero. And I think we have warriors in the team. I just feel that if we go for an expansive type of game, with the likes of Ugarte, Casemiro, Garnacho, Fernandes, Patrick Dorgu on one side, Mansour on the other, Mason Mount coming back, Kobe Mainoo looking to get back in, and Ahmad looking to be back. That is a frightening look. Man United have been a shit show all season, right? We all know that, so have we. But this game has corresponded with all of the players coming back, just as ours are falling by the wayside. So I feel that, we can beat them. if we play a pragmatic style, similar to the type of performance we put on against Frankfurt, where it wasn't pretty, but it was, you saw every tackle meant something. There was a feistiness to it. And, one of my biggest complaints about Ange Postecoglou this season and last season is, if you're a great orator, then great orators normally motivate players. And you notice that when they come out of the tunnel. When I look at Arsenal, it looks to me like Arteta has told them, go out there for your family's life. They come out there like men possessed in that first 20, 25 minutes. And we haven't seen that. I mean, Sunday's game against Palace was just abject, I can't be asked. I know it was nothing in that game, but we've also seen that against Ipswich, Leicester, and other teams. And I want him to give the greatest speech of his life, Ange, when we come out, before they come out onto that pitch. And we'll see it. In that first 5 minutes, we will see what sort of speech he's given. Because if we stand off them and we don't see that passion and that fight, it'll be curtains. But I think we can do it. We can do it. Although the chips are down, United have played in the Bilbao. They played at that stadium. Okay, they've got the experience. They will understand it. It was hostile. It was their away stadium. So nothing's going to faze them in that stadium that they haven't heard already. It'll be more friendly than it was before, for sure. And the stadium's red.
Well, he's given plenty of final speeches before, right? For various cup competitions. So he's definitely got to tune into his best ones. He's got to roll back the years and find his best one, I guess. But I mean, Dave, he hates this question, Ange, but I think it's a relevant one to ask. I don't think he should be as bothered by it if a journalist did ask him in the press conference, are you going to change anything? Are you going to adapt in any way with all these players being out?
Look, I think what Postecoglou has demonstrated is you're not going to see a wild change in formation, right? You're not going to see us revert to 3 centre-backs, 2 wing-backs like we did against Everton, because we just can't play like that and we don't train in it for it to be effective. So we're not going to see a change in formation. But there's still a way that we can still compete in this game, Look, don't get me wrong, not having that player like Maddison, who's probably the best in the team, dropping deep, getting on that ball, turning, spraying it forward, that's a huge loss. Then you're relying on your ball carrier, Kulusevski. He's gone. And then you're also relying on Bergwall, who's another good player, getting on that ball deep, turning, and getting us forward. They're no longer there, right? That does create huge problems. And, you're probably going to see Bentancur, Bissouma, and Papamata Sarr in that midfield, which means a lot of your technicality in that midfield is gone. So it's a huge risk trying to play through that midfield. But what we've seen the way against Bodo Glimt, the way against Frankfurt, we haven't tried to really play through that midfield. We've gone long. You've got Romero, Porro playing these long balls over the top that have worked to great effect. We still have that option available to us. The problem is you don't have Maddison making them runs. So you're going to have to instruct one of your players to make them runs. Maybe instruct Richarlison to come in a bit closer to Dominic Solanke or something like that. But that's the options that we have. So I don't really see it causing us too much of a problem in general, to be honest with you, because in a lot of the away games in this, we bypassed the midfield and gone longer, took a longer approach anyway. What we can't afford to do is sit off them. We have to still go and press the issue. We have to force them back. It's what we've done against Frankfurt. That's what we've done against Bodo Glimt. We forced the ball back to the goalkeeper every time, made them go long, and Van de Ven and Romero just mopped it up all game long. It's if we sit off them, we start allowing them, we show them respect, we're worried because of our technical creativity. We sit in and try and keep a compact shape. That's where the problem comes in, because we just watch teams then pass it around, throw crosses into the box, and we're not the best at defending them. And that's where the problem comes in. So for me, you can still put a workhorse midfield in there, get your strikers and wingers to go and press that ball, get the midfield up behind it, and try and force United into mistakes in their own half, which means then you're not really relying on someone like a Maddison or that to thread them balls all the time, because you can force mistakes and do it another way. So for me, I'm not really too fearful about it to a large degree. Don't get me wrong, it'll be a problem in terms of how sexy or how pretty we're going to play on the night, but there's still a way we can win this game without them.
I mean, can you get that pressing impetus that you want if you played like a bully-like midfield, Sarr, Bissouma, Bentancur? Surely there would be a bit of quality missing going forward, but maybe you can get like a you know, a good pressing kind of start. You know, you can come out the gates, you can bully that Man United midfield, and perhaps even get lucky with like a nice sort of early goal if you go with those three.
Do you remember?
Look, Man United.
Oh, Josh, I'm just going to say, do you remember at the beginning when Ange first came and it was Papasar and Basuma, and it very much looked like father and son, right? Look, you know, Basuma leading the way, Papasar, you know, they were forming quite a nice relationship, you know, and were performing well. But it has been a long time since we've seen the pair of them perform to any great.
That's the huge risk. You know, you can't play through them because, look, although I think Papa Matsar at times maybe has become a little bit of a forgotten man or maybe underappreciated to a certain degree at Tottenham, in possession this season, he's been piss poor. So, you know, he's going to lose that ball in the midfield. And you can't lose that at Bruno Fernandes' feet. He's going to kill you. You know, Basuma, he can either be brilliantly on the ball by keeping it simple, or then he thinks he's fucking Maradona. He thinks he can go and beat six players, gets picked, and again, they counter on us. It becomes a problem. So for me, that's where you look at who's your best passers in the team now. You look at Romero and you look at Pedro Porro. They can deliver longer balls. You don't need to play through that midfield. Get Son, Richarlison up in the forward line. Get them to hold up balls, win free kicks, play in their half, and eliminate the risk of actually trying to play through that midfield out from the back. Romero's shown time and time again he can make them long balls over the top if people makes the run. Porro can also play them balls and cross. So we still have an avenue of breaking Man United down. It's just we got to eliminate the risk of giving the ball into Papa Matsar and Basuma.
That's why it's so important to have Udogie. Like, I completely echo what you're saying there, Dave. With like Pedro Porro is going to be absolutely vital for that reason, but Destiny Udogie is going to be vital for another reason, right? He's going to have to be up there feeding off of the knockdowns, and whoever it's going to be on the left hand side, whether it's Sonny, Matisse Tell, if it's Richarlison on the left hand side, whatever that combo is going to have to be a hell of a lot of work done from Destiny Udogie to kind of provide that overlap to be able to get to the byline, get to the goal line essentially, and pull it back, because I don't see that happening from the right. From the right hand side, I see, you know, it's very much the same as it always is. Brennan Johnson, if we can break, fine, but that's not really, even though he was good at that at Forest, it's not really what he's turned out to be at Tottenham. Whereas he'll get the ball, pull it back to Pedro Porro, who can cross it from deep, or like you say, Romero can ping it in. But those pings have to be diagonal. You can't really just ping the ball vertically and just do old school Liverpool Emil Heskey stuff. That doesn't really exist anymore. You need to have the knockdowns, right?
Son's made a living off running in behind. You know, Maddison's been doing it with Romero this season in behind. You know, there's still avenues for us to be able to make this effective. Richarlison, if you can also get him in the front line, you know, and maybe drop Brennan Johnson, you know, he can also come in off Dom Solanke. There's ways we can do this without necessarily having to rely on that playmaker in the midfield. Yeah, but the only other option then Postecoglou has is trying something a little bit different, going with two pivots in Bentancur and Basuma and playing Son in there, or giving Mikey Moore an opportunity against Villa. I know it's a huge gamble, but if he pulls it off and he has a good game, then maybe you look at that as an option then in the Europa League final. Look, I know it's, like I said, it's a huge gamble. It's probably not going to happen. But this is where Postecoglou's paid the big bucks. There's no excuses here. You're paid a fortune to find a solution to the problems. Use the Aston Villa game to have a look at someone like Mikey Moore or Son in that number 10, or maybe a Wilson Odegaard, and see if maybe they can produce something a little bit different. And that way you can still keep your formation without actually having to drastically change everything.
Is there any risk, though, in giving away? Because I was saying this earlier as well. Like, I get a risk of repeating myself. Like, I just feel like there is this element of unpredictability which has crept in via a back door, where I don't know. None of us seem to know for sure what way we're going to go because of those injuries, and so we're debating it now. If he experiments tomorrow night and it works, does that give away a little bit of the potential plan B on the night towards Amorim? Whereas right now, if we were to go out and just like almost use tomorrow night as like a training ground game for the youngsters or whatever, so that we take away any risk of injury, because we really can't afford any more injuries, right? None at all. And so if you don't experiment tomorrow night and you just play the kids, then at least we have that ace up our sleeve that you'd hope that they're figuring these things out on the training ground, but that you don't have to necessarily trial it in a game where, you know, there's too much at risk with regards injuries, and also giving away, as I say, that kind of that plan B on the night. So you can start with the way that we're talking about, but then have that kind of option up your sleeve that if it doesn't work in the second half, if we are 1-0 down with 30 minutes to play, then you throw Mikey Moore on, not because you've seen it and everyone else has seen it tomorrow night, but because we've been practicing for it during the week.
See, the thing is, like, the reason why I do get your point, you know, you don't really want to give, maybe if you do have a way around it, you don't want to give that away to Man United. But I look at it the other way. If he goes into Man United without actually trialing it for a 15, 20-minute period, even against Aston Villa, if that doesn't work, all of a sudden he has to make a substitution very, very quickly and pivot. It's not one of Postecoglou's strengths, you know, and that's where I worry. That, for me, I would like to see a bite-sized sample and go, do you know what? Potentially that could work.
Yeah.
I kind of would lean just quickly towards, again, a kind of a strong bully-like midfield so that we can get that pressing that Dave is talking about. And then in the opening 20 minutes, sometimes there's just so much chaos to it that perhaps just having 3 bully-like midfielders could help us. Might turn the ball over in a good area. We know Pop Matasar makes those late runs, or he can also have a pop from distance.
Scores.
He can find a way to score from outside the box. You never know how finals go, but having maybe just 3 workhorses in that midfield could, at least for the first half, really benefit us. But if it's ending up to finish out 0-0 or something like that, you might need to actually lean towards a more creative player and then make that change that you're saying maybe Ange doesn't necessarily make. But I would go for just 3 bully-like midfielders. And we know this, like Bruno Fernandes is pretty much their real threat. And if you had just 3, again, workhorse-like midfielders, you might be able to deal with him a little bit better than risking it with someone like a Sonny or someone else, you know, playing through the midfield who just might not be able to track him or be able to mark him as properly.
I've got something for you. So if you don't invert, because look, we know Dorgu and Mansouri are going to get down the flanks.
Yeah.
Just the left fielder, right? What if you bring in Danso, yeah, and you just sit Cuti Romero just in front of him and Mickey van der Ven?
And what, push Basuma and Bentancur into the 8s?
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's an option. I mean, look, it's not ideal. You know, I think taking Romero out of the back line is a huge gamble.
We know that Cuti Romero can pass the ball, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, and I see exactly where you're coming from with it. You know, and not only that, he can tackle as well. You know, he can pull down moves and stuff.
Because that midfield that they can rotate. Mason Mount has come from nowhere. Suddenly he's on fire. You know, he's been paid nearly 300 grand a week. They paid fortunes for him. He's come back. He's come on and scored 2 goals in, like, what was it, 3 minutes or something as a sub. He got Mainu, who's now chomping at the bit. All of them desperate to play. They got so many options in the middle of the park there, whereas we have no options. If there's an injury or we get tired, they have massive threats off the bench. So we've got to last the 90 minutes, okay? It's not just taking the lead, or because like they're going to finish stronger in the middle of the park based on the fact that they have got so many reinforcements to bring on. So I just thought that I'm just thinking which way round it.
I'm more than okay with actually trying different personnel in a different position. He's going to have to make something like that work. What I don't want him to do is change formation and try something completely off the cuff. We tried that against Everton and it was a disaster. We were 3-0 down by half time. Yeah. So I'm actually okay with your solution. I think it comes to a point where this is where Postecoglou is going to earn his money. He's going to have to come up with something clever like that. But I'm okay with moving, you know, the chess pieces around to make it fit within the formation without actually changing the formation.
He threw Richarlison on the wing, right? And that didn't change the formation at all. Didn't change the shape, but it did change the dynamic. He does have to experiment like he did with Richarlison for this game. Just wanted to get some of the comments here as well as get to Daniel Field. And then we have another question on the Kulusevski injury, but we're going to have to open a can of worms on it, especially with what we said last week. Giddy Hap saying, yes, Sarr has been poor, but why are people looking away that he's performed well in the Europa for us? Everyone has been poor in the league, not just him only. And then Crooks as well saying, if Sarr and Basuma give us a big performance, we will win. It seems like Basuma, if he can channel his best again, and then if we get the best from Bentancur, that is definitely, I think, the key to actually probably getting the most out of them for this.
Postecoglou did pull Basuma aside. You know, we've been told this. He said, I'm going to need you at some point, and I need you at your best. And since then, Basuma's been brilliant. So all we need is one more out of him. It's all we need.
And just tell him that there are plenty of balloons after you win a final. There are plenty of balloons that pop
He can
out.
have as many balloons as he wants. I'll spray them.
Balloon. Listen, isn't it funny though? Because Andrew's protected so many players, he had no problem throwing Basuma and Timo Werner under the bus, right? And of the players that are still there now, Basuma. And I think most fans, had you spoken 5-6 weeks ago, I don't think there was any doubt, if you did a poll, that about 80% of fans thought that Basuma was going straight out the door this summer.
100%.
And he wouldn't likely figure in most of the squads in moving forward. And let's be honest, had Maddison, Bergvall and Kulu not been injured, at best he'd have been on the bench. Yeah. And now we're looking for him to step up. What we have to be wary of is, stupidity. We saw it, for example, when Sean and I went to Luton. He'd just been booked, and then 2 minutes later, he's fake diving to get a red card. He came on the other day to calm things down a few weeks back in a game, and he was literally on the pitch for 30 seconds, and he's got a yellow card, right? He's replaced the yellow card, and he's got a red card within 30 seconds. He has a rush to the head. And whilst I was talking about, the firing of them up, he's the one player that needs to, be fired up, but be mindful to use his head, because we have seen Basuma stupidity on numerous occasions in the last 12 months. And we really need him to be disciplined. Listen, to win this, the whole team needs to be immensely disciplined. Simple.
Yeah, we've won recent games in the Europa League by not really an individual, but by everyone pretty much putting in their shift and everyone playing well. You could say that with the Bodo Glimt in the second leg. Everybody played well. You wouldn't say, though, that there was anybody that was a proper standout. At least that's just my take of it. And
League One,
go for the final.
League One. Listen, look, we can build them up as much as we want, but Bodo Glimt were poor. They didn't do anything. It was a very professional performance by Spurs. But honestly, I think I overhyped them myself.
I think everyone did. If we put them in their place, Johnny, though, we put them in their place. After they talked a lot.
I think it was right to be weary of him. I actually think Postecoglou deserves massive credit. He cut off the supply to the fullbacks using Richarlison. It was the way Richarlison pressed. He positioned himself between the centre back and the fullback, which meant they cut that off. They forced him to play it in midfield, and we pressed them every time and turned it over. I actually think we got the tactics spot on and make them look piss poor.
I've got to tell you, honestly, and Sean will tell you, I'm always defending. I defend him a lot, but I think Richarlison was absolutely shocking against Bodo. The thing for me is, he's so keen to impress right now. He's like the kid in the playground, desperately, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball, press, right? He needs to be disciplined. He needs to be more mindful and thoughtful. Just like I was saying about Basuma, he's been a long time out. He's still not match fit, you can tell by some of his touches and the way he's moving with the ball, the confidence. But if he can stay disciplined, look, I think we've got winners here. Richarlison's played in the World Cup in massive games. Cuti Romero's played in Copa America finals, World Cup finals. Porro's the same. Bentancur's played at the highest level. And it's that experience that was going to combat the likes of Bruno Fernandes' experience, Casemiro's experience. We need that, because, we've got a lot of kids and a lot of people without that experience. But we've got Mickey van der Ven. We've got our defence. We couldn't ask for more in our defence. Okay, as long as, please God, we don't get any more injuries. Which I don't think we will.
Let's get on to the injuries conversation. I have to open a can of worms with the conversation that Dave, Nick, and Dermo and I had while we were all there in person. Everyone, at least apart from myself, wanted to give Kulusevski more minutes, i.e. that Crystal Palace game. And I think Dave and Dermot's, as well as Nick's reasoning, was like to give him more match sharpness, give him more fitness before the Europa League final. You could say that came back to bite us. I personally was in the opposite camp. I kind of felt like he wasn't really, 100% fit, even during the Bodo Glimt second leg or any of the games that I've seen him. I felt like we needed to just preserve him, put him in a cryo chamber, whatever those things are, until that Europa League final. Is Kulusevski's big injury a signal of a lack of care and caution from Ange Postecoglou, Sean? Or is it the case that maybe Ange is just continually fed the wrong information by his medical staff on their fitness and availability? Which one is it? Is it Ange's lack of care and caution, or is it the medical staff just continuing to feed him the wrong info?
I think with regards Decky, it's just bad luck. I mean, he was fit enough to play the previous games. Obviously, he just took a bad tackle, bad knock. Look, Crystal Palace went full strength, relatively full strength, right? And they got a cup final coming up. So it's just one of those things where you roll the dice, and he's damned if he does, damned if he doesn't, right? If he puts out kids and then we end up losing the same or worse than we did anyway, he was going to get like rightly chastised for not being able to motivate the squad that he's put together. If he puts out a stronger team to try and get 3 points, and he gets away with it, people will say, what were you doing anyway? You've rolled the dice there, and that's crazy. I think it's just one of those rock and a hard place things. And unfortunately, with Decky, it's just really horrendously bad luck. But I think you've got to fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, right? I think there's a little bit of with regards what we do on Friday night. You need to learn the lesson of what happened on Sunday, and you can't take any risks, especially knowing what Aston Villa are like. They've got history of being nasty, brutal players against Tottenham. John McGinn is just ferocious. They've got big, strong guys. They've got Matty Cash, who loves to ruin a Tottenham player's career.
True.
And I just think that, and they're going to be up for it, because this is a cup final for them in terms of getting into their top 4. So them, it's super important, and they'll know that Tottenham won't go into anything with any more than a 50-50, especially if they play in players that they're within a shout. And given what's happened this week, given with Decky and Bergwijn, I think on this one, I'm not going to sit there and, like I have done recently, and say, and go after Ange afterwards. I'm really not. I want us to get through this one unscathed. And because I think even with a full strength team, we'd still really struggle against Aston Villa right now at home. We're just not in the right form. So wear it on the chin. But for me, this team tomorrow night, I do not want to see anybody that is in Ange's starting 11 starting that match. If you want to give them 20 minutes at the end of the game just to keep them fresh and stretch their legs or whatever, then so be it. But even then, pick your battles, and I just don't think it's necessary. So in terms of Ange, mate, I mean, I don't know if I've gone off on a rant there. No. In terms of do I blame Ange for what happened? No, I don't really. I think it's just bad luck with regards to the injury. These things happen, don't they? It's a physical contact sport, and he was just unlucky. But yeah, we do need to learn the lesson of what happened last Sunday and not make the same mistake tomorrow night.
You don't think it's kind of the same? It's different from the conversations we've had before about some of the other injuries, Van de Ven, Romero. Ange has been given the blame. Medical staff have been given the blame. You think this? Yeah,
but I think those players those players weren't ready. I mean, Johnny always talks about Richarlison. Obviously, he's kind of closer to that whole story a little bit, and he says that the player shouldn't be playing this many minutes when he has. He's been overplayed and he's underplayed, etc. And so there's definitely mistakes there. And I think that there's definitely merit to what you're suggesting, Jack. And I think that with the mistakes that he made around playing those players before they were ready, with the likes of Romero and Van de Ven, there's definitely merit. But Decky had been back in the team now for 4 or 5 games, right? So
was it a mistake though, lads? Because coming off the AstroTurf, you are sore and stuff like that. Was it a mistake to actually play Kulu in the Palace game? Could he maybe waited and played him, for 45 minutes in this game against Aston Villa? I get that you can't take into account he's going to get tackled or he's going to shoot the ball, someone blocks it and he gets injured. But I just think maybe coming off the back of the AstroTurf, knowing that Kulu has had injuries recently, should he have been maybe a bit more precautious than throwing him straight in from the off against Palace maybe?
I think he had to, personally, I think, I'm no fan of Ange, you might know, but I'm not going to criticise Ange Postecoglou for this one. I've criticised him for many other players. Bikuti, Romero, Mickey Van de Ven rushing them back too soon. Richarlison, been out for months. You don't play someone 75 minutes, right? After they've been out for months. You just don't do it. You've got eased back. But for me, Kulu looked like he's been running through treacle the last 3 or 4 games, okay? He looked very leggy. But again, what I do blame Ange for is if you look back through the archive, you will see in an interview where Kulu says, I'm running on empty, right? I'm tired, right? At that point, it was a cry of help. Like, I need a rest, because he played every minute of every game. Him and Porro played more than any other player. And at that point was when he should have, been taken out. But as to the point, I don't think it was anything to do with the Astro pitch. Like I said, I was watching as he went to shoot that shot. And as the ball went out, I saw him reach down and hold his knee and his ankle. You could clearly see, because he really went for it. I mean, he went to absolutely smash that he came on the right-hand side, he was in the penalty box, and he went to smash it, right, with his right foot into the top left-hand corner. And he put everything behind it, and he was just blocked.
Becky's injury.
Before that first injury, yeah. Okay?
Oh, I thought it happened on the halfway line.
No. So I'm just saying to you, that was the first contact where he felt it. Okay.
I see. It happened earlier.
And then literally 2 minutes later, right? I saw him and I said, he's hurt. I said to my son, he's hurt himself. He said, no, he's all right. And then he's come down. I think it was Manuz on the right-hand side on the halfway line, literally right in front of me. He's gone through the back of him and he's gone down. And I said, he's in trouble because of that last one. The two of them combined.
Gotcha.
But you can't. There's many that I could have blamed him for, but I felt that he needed minutes. The only thing you could maybe have said was maybe you should have brought him on as the Palace players were tiring in this as a second half sub for 20-25 minutes. Maybe you could have argued that, but I think he needed the minutes, which leads us on to the point in question here. Are we really going to say, for example, he decides to take a risk and he plays Bergvall and Son from the start when they're not, they're Harry Kane fit 2019. Now, what would happen, God forbid, if those two break down early and then we're having to reshuffle? And that's more disconcerting. So for me, I would rather start with certainties on that bench, and that means that even if Bergvall makes it, that Bergvall and Son should start on the bench and then potentially be used coming on. I don't know, guys, what you guys think.
I just want to say, even though King Hoddle's probably right by plenty of times, we can be guilty of a bit of hindsight Bertrand, type of behavior. But I did say, it's documented. I said, I don't see the point in playing Kulusevski for this Crystal Palace game. I actually felt like it was a good chance for Ange to experiment with just something else, because it was a bit of a nothing burger game. There wasn't really much of a reason, in my opinion, to risk a guy that I felt like was not really showing that he was still getting close to 100% fitness. I know people were talking about match sharpness, confidence, that sort of thing. Totally hear that argument. But Kulu, to me, looked like he still was struggling really to be at his best, fitness-wise in these few games. So I just felt like, give him some rest, see if he can come back for the final, at least, feeling like, he can put in, like a run through the wall type of performance, because the Crystal Palace game just felt like such a nothing game to risk a guy that I felt like needed to be available for that final. And I would argue it isn't as much hindsight, because I did say it, before the game. And Tyler saying he needed to get as many minutes as possible. Nige Purecoy saying he had to have minutes. It's just one of those things. I don't know. I seem to be in the minority, but I did say that it just didn't seem like a game to even talk about, match sharpness, that type of thing. I just wanted all of the most important players to basically be put, the recent, be put in bubble wrap, be put in cotton wool before this final.
Yeah. I hear you, mate.
No, look, I understand it, but when I'm looking at Kulusevski, I think it's clear that he was struggling, even just to get that feel of the ball, that rhythm again. And I think that's the risk you had to take, with Maddison being out, with Bergvall being out. I think you had to try and take that risk of getting that guy somewhat, in some sort of form going into that final, because the plan would have been to rely on him to provide that creativity. It's just unfortunate that it's backfired. But I do think, it's more of a problem with Kulu than anything else. I think one thing, remember, not factoring a third factor into this, instead of maybe just Ange and the medical team, how much was Kulusevski personally pushing back to get back for that final? Seeing reports coming out yesterday that Lucas Bergvall is going to try his hardest and stuff like that. I know Postecoglou maybe cleared that up today, but there is, a desire of players that they will push themselves through the pain barrier or trying to come back a little bit early to try and get in a European final. Some of these guys might never, ever see a European final again in their careers. That it's funny how a career can pan out. So there could be an element that Kulusevski was also pushing himself and pushing Ange to try and get him on the pitch, to get him up to speed and stuff like that. Look, ultimately it backfired, but look, I think it was a risk that, we had to take, because you couldn't justify the selection of him going into a final if he's not showing anything on the pitch in terms of on the ball and stuff. So I think it's a gamble we had to take, and it's one that backfired. But look, this is where, like I said, Postecoglou earns his money here. It's up to him now to come up with something.
I wasn't even that impressed with him, before, that game anyway. So maybe there is some argument to that, to at least see if he can at least show some type of quality before the final, or give him that chance to have some bit of quality before the final, because I didn't really think he'd been playing that well up until that point.
I also think with Kulusevski, this happened under Conte. If you remember, he got an injury he was out in around the October period, was out for a while, came back for the rest of that season and wasn't really that great. He was very underwhelming. Again, didn't look sharp, but didn't look fit. And I just wonder how much of that is down to him being a heavy lad. It was the same when Harry Kane used to get injured. He would struggle to come back for it for a couple of games, because if you are a bigger lad with a bigger body type, it takes a lot more to get fit. So for me, I wonder with Kulu, is he one of them players that when he picks up an injury, he's always going to struggle to come back, to the form that he was in before his injury, just because of the body type and stuff like that.
Yeah. Ian Ferguson, member for 37 months. Absolutely crazy, the numbers that people like yourself are getting to. I'm not even sure if Dave and I can count this high when it comes to the months, but it's also been, with some of you guys, 40, 50 months.
Saying I'm done, Jack.
Crazy. Well, I'm definitely saying I can't count to this number anymore. Big up to you, Ian, my man. Hopefully you're keeping well. And then also DB's in the house too, saying welcome back, boys. Felt for you over the weekend. Got to see our tactics in the flesh, which is more eye-opening than on TV. I mean, Dave, did it take the cake for the most boring game of the season? I think, Spurs entered Palace's half a total of 3 or 4 times inside the 90 minutes. I got more freckles than I think we even had touches in the box.
Can I ask a question? I was going to ask a question, right? So, I mean, most people are pretty set on what the defence should be for the Villa game. What would happen, for example, should we blood in an Ange, a Callum Oluwasi, or whoever, and they have an outstanding game against Aston Villa, and they really shine? Would that give them? Would that turn someone's mind that maybe they could have, if it was from a creative position, that they could potentially have a surprise role in the game, or is the game far too big to even contemplate that?
Yeah, I don't think Postecoglou will. Look, if we were to see some of these guys, and I think there's been opportunities, over the course of this period of time when we clearly gave up on the Premier League a long time ago, to put our eggs in the Europa League basket. If Postecoglou, I think, this is the biggest indicator to me that I think we are going to part ways regardless of the result in the Europa League final, is he would have started blooding some of them and giving some of them their opportunities in games earlier. But what he hasn't. What he's done is he's continued with the periphery of the squad to make sure that he's got that squad ready for the Europa League final to hopefully get it over the line. I don't think he is risk someone like Oluwasi or players like that, because it serves no benefit to him if he's not going to be here next season. So personally, I don't see it's going to be the case. I think the only one where you might see it is potentially just a look at Mikey Moore in the number 10, who has played there 40 under 18s, 40 under 21s for a brief period. That's the only one I can see happening, or maybe looking at Son in there. Apart from that, I'd be surprised if he looks at the academy, and I think it's the biggest indicator yet that he's not going to be here next season.
Well, I think now we'll get on to some of the other questions that we had. This one maybe could be pointed towards Johnny, or whether Sean has said something similar before. Ange Postecoglou's recent revival of Basuma, maybe a signal of his good man management skills. And also, plenty of people did say, they're going to win the Europa League final despite Ange Postecoglou. Has nothing to do with him, has to do with the players, sort of battling for themselves, for their own self-pride. The fact that Basuma, you could argue, is one of the most checked out players, towards the end of this season, now all of a sudden has just come back like a fresh new player, really. Maybe it shows that the players haven't lost the belief in Ange, and that they are going to win it with him and not against him. Like, maybe you've suggested in the past, Johnny?
Sean, you take this one.
I put you on the spot.
I think that Ange, if we're sort of giving credit for Ange, if we're giving credit to Ange for like reinventing Bissouma and trying to find the words to motivate him, I think you can also give him the criticism for dropping the confidence of Jed Spence for the way that he treated Archie Gray. I think that there's a lot of examples of moments this season where Ange says the right words, and just like anyone that's like a wordsmith or a salesman or whatever you want, like I think he's just a salesman. And I used to fall in love with his words. I used to like fall in love with him every week when I'd hear his passionate press conferences. But after a while, I'm like, there's a lot of words, not a lot of action here, and I think there's a lot of double talk. And I think there's actually I see through it now. To me, it's a little bit transparent, and I think that's going to be the same. If you're listening to him every day, then you're either going to love it or you're not, and you're either going to buy into it or you're not. And I think with any, like I said, with any like motivational speaker, if you like, you're going to have people that just fall in love with it and will buy into it, especially if it's personalized, especially if you get that tap on your shoulder like Bissouma's got. And he says, you know, I need you now. I'm going to need you more than ever at some point. Please be there. Please be ready. Especially after giving him the cold shoulder early on the season, right? But you know, in order to get your best out of your team and in order to be kind of universally loved and liked or whatever and respected by everybody in your squad, you're going to have to find the way to do that with everybody. And I feel like this season, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm not in the dressing room, so I don't know the specifics of it. But it comes across to me as though the way that he used and then chucked away Jed Spence, that's impacted Jed Spence of late. And I feel like the way that he used Archie Gray and then kind of dispensed of him as well as soon as he got his boys back, I think that's hurt the confidence of Archie Gray. And I think those guys are younger than Bissouma and need that kind of that TLC. Probably more than someone like Bissouma should have to do. If Bissouma needs a tap on the shoulder and a word in his ear to stay motivated, I think that's also quite telling. So I don't know if that's like a lot. Like I'm not sure that's a clear answer, but what I'm saying is, I guess like some people are going to buy into it, some people aren't. And I think that what I'd like to see from him, if he's here, not that I want him to be, but if he is here for the longer term, I need to see more of the kind of keeping the plate spinning because you have to. Who was it who said? Who was the manager that said it's incredibly difficult to keep 26 players motivated all the time? I think it was the ex-Everton and Liverpool manager.
Sean Dyche? No. You just Everton. You said
Liverpool and Everton. Yeah, the guy that's been linked Benitez. Yeah, that's it. Benitez said, and that's why Benitez was known for like heavy rotation. Even at times when it would hurt him, he'd say, the bigger picture here is keeping everybody happy. It's hard to do that, especially at Everton. They didn't have 2 games a week. So I just think that there's a little bit like I get what Ange is very good at certain things, but if you see through it, or if you look at coming at it from a different angle, there's not enough of it that's spread evenly across the team. And I think that for me is where I land on it. I think that he's good in moments, not consistent with it.
Typical cherry picking from me, Johnny, on this question here. Is Sean right to point out that he's also kind of effed off Spence, Archie Gray, some of the others, but I think it is pretty impressive that he's all of a sudden revived Bissouma in a time when he really needed to.
I'm not a buyer of the ticket. I'm sorry. Listen, look, I'm not going to jump. I'm not going to jump on it. There's certain things that I know that have gone on over the course of this season, which. As Sean touched on earlier, to treat Jed Spence the way he did.
Are we making a meal out of that, though? Because, let's be honest.
I'm not making a meal out of it.
No, but Conte treated Jed Spence way worse than what Postecoglou.
No, I'm not. Listen, I'm not saying that it's a completely different scenario, right? What I would say is that, when you ask someone to stay at the club when they have opportunities to go elsewhere, and then the first thing you do when you've convinced that person is to drop them out of the Europa squad, then, you tell somebody you're going to be your right back, and then you go to Coventry on a Wednesday night and you drop him for an 18-year-old to play right back, And the only reason he comes on is because Destiny Adogi gets injured at half-time and he rescues your ass in the 88th minute. Otherwise, we were going out to Coventry. That would have been another one to add to the list of disasters, okay? 88th minute, we were going out, okay? It was a solo run, bang, right? Back in the game. How was he rewarded? He was dropped. Didn't see him again. And suddenly, when the chips were down and he needed Jed, remember when he said, I have got no place to rotate, right? Jed Spence was sitting there, right? He said he can't rotate, right? BS, absolute BS. So then to take credit for him playing well, you don't think that he just like, he's been terrible and all of a sudden, you know, he's dropped him and he's just dropped in and suddenly he can play a game like that. Just the same, just to let me finish on this one, just the same as now Jed realises he's been dumped again and he's never going to play unless he's second fiddle. Look at his performances. I'm not saying it's right because he's not professional, but his body language against Crystal Palace was terrible. And in the previous game was terrible because that is a player, and so are some of the other players who were in that team against Crystal Palace who knew, and this is an important part of why I don't think Ange Postecoglou is the great manager that everyone says he is. Pochettino had a knack of making every single player in that squad, no matter who they were, no matter how small the part they were, that they were an important cog in that wheel. So
that comes down to the man management, though, Johnny. You know, Pochettino is like a father figure to all them. Postecoglou doesn't want to be that guy.
Is that to his own detriment, though?
Yeah, of course it is.
Well, that's just what I'm saying. That's why when, you know, Lucas Moura, who's not getting the game, suddenly gets unleashed against Ajax. Look what happened, right? Because he was ready, because he felt part of it. And there's lots of that felt part of it. And you can look at that performance against Crystal Palace, and that was a team of players who knew no matter what their performance, no matter what they did against Crystal Palace, they were never going to get a game. I'm not saying it's right, because it isn't. You're a professional footballer and you have to go out there and perform. But that's what it said to me. And that's indicative of a manager that hasn't been inclusive. It's been very obvious from the off who are his main team and who are his also rans.
I hear what you're saying, but I think Jose Mourinho had his main team in the also rans. I think Conte was the same to a large degree, and I think Nuno was the same, and I think Postecoglou is the same. I think every manager has their preferred 11. Look, when it comes to
about preferred 11, it's a squad based. I'm not denying that, but it's a squad based game. And if you alienate, right, this is my 11, and the rest of you mean fuck all to me, right? That ain't the way to go about it.
No, look, 100%. 100%. You know, he's causing himself his own problems there. But, you know, look, when it comes to Jed Spence, I mean, yeah, look, could Postecoglou have, you know, when Jed Spence was playing well, rewarded him, putting him in the back line with Romero Van de Ven and Pedro Porro, you know, and giving him his opportunity? Yeah, of course he could. But also, you know, even if a manager then decides to not do that, it's still up to you to perform well. You're never, ever guaranteed your starting spot in this team. So there's still an onus on Jed Spence to keep persevering. Why would you go through everything you've gone through, being dismissed by Conte, being pushed out on loan and everything else, to come back, fight for your place, eventually you get it. Then all of a sudden, that like sort of final hurdle, you know, where you can sort of cement yourself in this Tottenham team moving forward, all of a sudden you're down tools, you know, or you drop off in performance levels. It makes no sense. I just wish someone could get Jed Spence here.
Yeah, because the managers turned around and said, basically, right, I don't need you now, mate. Right?
Yeah, I know, but this is where it still falls on.
Off you go. Off you go.
Look, this is still where it falls on the player, though, on his mentality. You know, we've all been told with things we don't like in life, you know. That's usually what your father does to you and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's to do it, to tell you to buck up for the right outcome because he loves you. No one else is going to tell you that sort of stuff. And at the end of the day, this is where it becomes on the player to push through that. You know, if he has a feeling Postecoglou ain't going to be there next season, then keep performing. Put yourself, you know, in the eye of the next manager coming in. You're on the cusp of the England squad. You as a player also have to take ownership. When it comes to Archie Gray, I sort of disagree with that narrative a little bit as well. I actually think the fact that he's looked at all of these midfield options and said, you're the one that I trust to do a job for me across the back line, I think actually speaks volume of what he actually thinks of Archie Gray in general. Now, I take Sean's point, throwing him in the midfield against Liverpool, you know, and using that maybe as a barometer or saying to people, look, he's not at that level yet, I think, again, is harsh. But I would argue, would Archie Gray have got more minutes under Conte, under Jose Mourinho than what he has this season? I don't think so. And I think in general, I think what we're seeing coming out of the football club and what I've picked on, you know, as the season's gone on, and just little things I hear coming out of the players and reactions and stuff like that, I think the players are still fighting for him. I think, you know, if I put myself in the players' shoes in that dressing room, I'm not getting criticism for all the defeats, everything else. I'm not getting criticism. The manager is taking everything. He's taking ownership of absolutely everything. So I think when you look at the Frankfurt away game, which was, you know, everyone was like, he's gone. Tottenham ain't going to win this. Look at the outburst of emotion from him, the coaching staff, the players. It's clear they're still together. But I think this is where the message maybe has gone a bit askew. Usually you include the fans with that. We've been left out of that. It's almost like there's a thing inside from Postecoglou looking at the fans who have criticised him and the media going, I'll show you. He's
been saying that for ages, Dave.
He's used all of that criticism and he says, look, it's us versus them, you know. And I think what we're seeing, you see it with the likes of James Maddison, scores a goal, tells people to shut up, calls people Wally. Johnson gets criticism, comes back, scores a goal. Shh. You know, there's no respect here towards us fans from a lot of them players. And I think that comes from Postecoglou in general. And I think the message has been everybody inside against everybody and the fans. We haven't been included along this way. But the players are still fighting for him. And that's because he has shielded them for this season completely. He has shielded a lot of them.
They're shielding. They're shielding, right? The fans could be part of the shield. Right, the fans could be part of the shield. All that we needed to see was a little bit more embracing of the situation throughout, and a little bit more accountability, a little bit less of the Mimi and the Roadrunner stuff. When you see interviews with players throughout the season, like how are the team doing? How do you think your season's going? James Maddison, and he's saying, well, my output's been great. The team can do better. Even Decky saying, yeah, I've been working really hard, but clearly we're losing sloppy goals at the back and it's unacceptable. Even within that, it's all very preserving and kind of it's forgetting about the bigger picture that we're a team and that team is all of Tottenham, right? The fans, the staff, the players. And that's why I said on a tweet, like it must have been 6 weeks ago or something. I think I said Jose Mourinho, when he was back in his Chelsea days, he harnessed that idea of us against the world. But the us was everyone at Chelsea, including the fans, and the world was everybody else, right? And that's what that was.
Everyone that wears the badge.
Yeah, and Ange is doing a similar thing, but the world includes the fans, and the us is only the 23 men in the dressing room. And to Jack's initial question, maybe it's not even 23, maybe it's like 14.
I reckon 14. I believe it's 14, and you know, embrace the fans. We're all in it together. You, us, the players, the fans, the press are against us, football's against us, but we need to all stick together. I want to hear that, not the manager confronting fans. And you know what, Dave? I
think it all started against Man City, though, didn't it? He couldn't understand from the fans' sort of point of view. And I think since then he's gone, okay, they're not even with us. Do you know what I mean?
Listen, it's just, sorry, it's just excuses. It's just.
No, I'm not making excuses for him. I'm saying that's what I think's happened.
I personally think that these players, right? Look, there's no coincidence, right, that the same players are playing against Norwich, Ipswich, and the likes, and not turning up, are the same players that are performing heroics against Frankfurt, home and away, and against Bodo Glimt. The reason is because there's something in it for them, right? It is, Dave. Dave, come on, man.
Look, you look under Conte, under Jose Mourinho.
What was there to play for, right? They're playing for immortality. They're playing for their reputation, a winner's medal, to be on the biggest stage in Europe, right? The chance to be on the biggest stage in Europe for their own egos, for their own self-wealth, That's why they're motivated. They are self-motivated.
Can I ask you a question, though, Johnny?
Yeah.
Look, I understand what you're saying, and I think, look, a lot of people actually have your opinion, and to a degree, you know, there could be something to it. But I've never heard of a story of a player's gone, we've gone and won that to spite the manager. But I have heard countless of stories of players throwing managers under the bus and losing games to get rid of a manager. I've never, ever heard of a team or players ever come out and say, we won that despite the manager, ever.
Just quickly, just super quick, right? Just wanted to sorry, John, just 10 seconds. The one time this season that I've absolutely fallen back in love with a player was actually, Jack, your original question about Bissouma. After the Bodo game, when he was interviewed away in Norway, he came out and said, they said, oh, well done, Bissouma, you're in the final, how do you feel? And he said, yeah, just first and foremost, I want to say a massive big up to the fans. This is for the fans. You guys deserve this. I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember his specific words. But it was the only time this season that I've heard anything like respect, credit, credence, and genuine,
in a genuine way,
genuine, authentic appreciation for who it is that pays your bills, who it is that pays your money, who gives you this wonderful lifestyle. Because it's all of us, right? From one way or another, everyone that's watching this, all 3 or 4 of us on the panel here, and everybody else is a Tottenham fan, for your Sky Sports subscriptions or your season tickets or whatever, you're buying your shirt. We're the guys that pay their salaries. Not Daniel Levy, no one else, not Joe Lewis. It's us. And so
the money comes from somewhere.
And it comes from us, right? So. Like for him to sit there and say, yeah, I want to say massive big up to the fans. It's for you first and foremost. And then, yes, it's for the team. Yes, I'm happy for, and yes, by the way, I'm living a dream and I hope the dream I don't want to wake up. But the reality is we've got a final to go and win. I was like, wow.
Might take balloons with him.
I think Bissouma is a very likable guy. I think he's maybe sometimes a dislikable player. You know,
but look, taking us to get to the semi-final of the cup to hear any player or manager or anybody at the club to reference us in a positive way. And I'm like, I shouldn't have to like fall in love with Bissouma, but I have done because that's how rare it is.
Someone's bang on the money, right? And then contrast that with James Maddison's response to the Liverpool game. Shut your ears to the toxicity. We're not listening to that. Well, hang on a minute. People have just spent 5 hours driving up to Liverpool and 5 hours back. And you want to say shut up to the fans? You don't think the fans deserve that? That game could have been 8-1, 9-1. Liverpool was so wasteful in that game, in the final third. And, you know...
And then the following week, Johnny, the following week, when the interviewer said, the fans, it's been a painful season for them. And then suddenly he's like, for them? Or for us?
Yeah. Oh,
what are you doing, mate? You're the vice captain of the football club. If you can't, like, even if you're being brutally honest and that's how you feel, there's a time and a place. And in front of a camera, you don't be so bloody like obstinate and indignant and incredibly like devoid of like the sentiment that's being pushed
around. We've been an afterthought.
Games.
Going to the darts, man. Going to the darts, right? I didn't make a massive thing of it. It was It wasn't a great look. It wasn't a great look. But then when you get called out by one of the greats in Roy Keane about your game, about your attitude, your mannerisms, and you go and score 1 goal and you go like this to him, mate, right? You think one goal.
I know.
It's like Harry Maguire versus Albania.
Tapping as well. It's a tapping.
Yeah, fucking tapping.
It wasn't the world. Let's be honest.
That 1 goal dismisses everything that Roy Keane has said. No, it doesn't. Because Roy Keane was absolutely bang on the money, mate. You can't kid a kidder. Yeah.
I think the best one of all time, Johnny, is Harry Maguire versus Albania, in a friendly, does the cupping of the ears. One of the best ones of all time. It's just like, geez, get over yourself. But just want to say, everybody, we have well over 380 in the house. I don't even know if we have 100 likes. I think we might have just eclipsed it, but please.
540 across all platforms.
Hit that button.
540 across all platforms. So make sure you smash that like.
Please do. Follow us over on YouTube as well if you are watching over on X.
On Instagram as well, guys. So there should be some
legend.
Thank you, Johnny. I do have a decent question here on Ange, and then we'll hopefully be able to wrap up as well on just a nice little touch from the club here. But just quickly on this one. Ange has spoken a lot about not winning a trophy for trophy winning sake, right? Trying to build some sort of sustainability in developing a winning culture. Would this trophy, if we were to win the Europa League, would that be a flash in the pan kind of trophy, or could it actually be a catalyst for Spurs establishing that winning culture for the future that he spoke about before? Anybody can come in on this one. Is it a flash in the pan, or could it actually change things for Spurs?
At Tottenham, or just like with him at the club, or just the club itself? Even without him, will it?
With or without him, let's say.
Yeah, look, I think that success breeds success. I think you have to get the first one out of your way, and then you can move on to bigger and better things. This is a monster first one to get. Like, it's such a massive trophy. The pathway to get here hasn't been that difficult. And I think everyone, if you said at the start of the season, if you were told at the start of the season that Tottenham are 90 minutes away from lifting the Europa League and all they've got to do is beat a team that you've already beaten 3 times this season, you'd have bitten your hand off for it. And so it's super important not to undermine the value of it. But to his point and to your question, yes, I think that I'm not even going to call this like an acorn, right? But like from a large seed, an absolute monster can grow. But alternatively, it can go the other way as well, right? Like, for so many reasons, we've covered this loads of times recently. But the magnitude of next Wednesday can't be understated. Like, for Tottenham's ability to like in themselves, like create some sort of new energy around. No one could call us Spursy for at least another year. Everyone can sort of shut up, and Tottenham now can't be that kind of always the bridesmaid, never the bride thing. 7 finals, we didn't do it, finally did it, and it's Europa League. 2 European finals in 6 years. We have the chance to go to the Super Cup. If we go and win that in August, then we've won more European trophies in a month than Arsenal have won their entire lifetime. All of that stuff is like just a massive motivator and a massive kind of catalyst for what could be to come, to unify all the fans, to believe again. And of course, with all that stuff also comes the opportunity to keep your best players, to attract better players, to attract a better manager, hopefully. And obviously for Daniel Levy, if people want him gone, it might be a better metric to get that number valued at that he wants, because I think right now he's nowhere near getting the number that he wants. So there's so many things that are going to be potential catalysts out of that win on Wednesday night. And for sure, like the momentum that can come from one cup when you just don't know. Like I say, Super Cup could be next, and then a nice decent run next year in the Carabao Cup or something. You might be able to get 2 or 3 cups in a couple of years. Then everyone's happy again, right? And there's nothing to moan about. But if you don't do it, if you fail on Wednesday, everything that I just said doesn't happen. You lose you don't get your best players. You're not going to get a good manager. You don't have the money to go in the transfer market, or at least as much. You might lose some of your best players. Obviously, the Spursy tag maintains. And also on top of that, you're going to get left behind because there's now 8 or 9 teams that are realistically sort of championing at the bit for European football. And that revenue that is sort of generally guaranteed at the Champions League stages for most teams that always are in there, and Tottenham have been a participant in that. Well, that's no longer guaranteed because it's the gap between 3rd and like 9th is relatively small. So like it can't be understated how important Wednesday is. But yeah, the momentum from the cup win is massive as well. So he's right about that.
I think it's threefold. I think first, if we can just get rid of that Spursy tag, I think then moving forward in big games, going into maybe potential cup semi-finals or finals again in the future, I think that narrative's gone. I think it's huge for players then heading into that game, with all that weight, all that burden, all that expectancy off their shoulders heading into them games in future. I think will be massive for Tottenham Hotspur. So I think getting rid of the Spursy tag is absolutely huge. Change that culture. It also means, every other fan that, of every other club, because they all hate Tottenham, means they're going to have to become a lot more creative when they want to banter us. So, we'll test their intelligence levels then moving forward. Also, I just think in terms of just learning how to enjoy winning again, I think it's very, very important. I think under Pochettino, we almost got spoiled to a choice where we were winning, we weren't winning anything, but we weren't really holding trophies up. It got to the point, well, we can't enjoy winning unless you're winning trophies. And I think we've forgotten how to enjoy to win games and that winning feeling. And I just think if we can get over the line, I think, you sort of then develop a culture at Tottenham where people enjoy winning. You enjoy winning because it brings that success and you want more of that. It makes you more hungry. So for me, I think moving forward, I just think for the fans, for the players, for all the staff and board members in and around the club, I just think learning how to enjoy winning again and that good feeling, I think will make you want more, and I think will be absolutely huge for Tottenham again moving forward. And lastly, Sean mentioned it there, with the amount of teams now up there competing for that Champions League spot, if we don't win, we lose our best players. It means you don't have as much finances to sort of fix all your problems again. You fall further and further behind, which means it's going to take you longer and longer to be able to make that gap up. So I think in terms of winning, keep your best players, build on it moving forward. You can climb yourself back in there a lot quicker. So for me, I think there's so much riding on Wednesday night. But I think the most important thing is just for us to learn how to win again and enjoy that winning feeling is the most important moving forward. Because once you get that, everyone wants more of it. Not just the fans, but the players, the manager, the people inside the club. They want that adulation again and stuff. So you see more of it then moving forward.
Well, Johnny, unless you had any opinions on it, we can move on to the last question.
Move on to the last.
Okay.
Solomon.
Or did you want to do the free tickets?
I've got things to say about Solomon.
Well, we will just have a quick note on the tickets, that Daniel's Levy gifted out. I think, we can read out this, basically what he's done compared to what United's done and have quick words on it. And then we'll get into a little bit of a Solomon debate.
Okay. Spurs will provide one free ticket to the Europa League final in Bilbao to all of their 700 full-time employees, whereas United have taken a very different approach. They're only giving a small number of United staff members the opportunity or the chance to win tickets via a ballot, while those unable to attend will be able to watch a screening of the game instead. Nice touch by the club here, Johnny and Sean. Anybody feel like this is an opportunity to praise Spurs?
You might have heard this earlier. I'm just trying to find the post now, so just excuse me 1 second. But basically, I think
did the Mole get one?
Pardon?
Did the Mole get one? Does anyone know?
I don't know. But I think it's brilliant that Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe has made Daniel Levy look like Sheikh Mansour. It's quite interesting. You saw the lovely gesture from Amorim to give the tickets for, I think it was 30 members of staff. And then this comment I read out on Sean's show earlier, Eric Cantona then chipped in saying, "Our fund for another 30 staff and their families to go to Bilbao." Then Bruno Fernandes chipped in, "Let me do it. I'll do it for 50 families. Everyone deserves to attend the final." And then lastly, I'm sure there's more since, Patrick Everett chipped in, 30 from me if Ineos and the Glazers are too broke to fund it.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, could one make the case that some of the employees that would be gifted these tickets, for the Spurs final, it's not like all 700 of them are Spurs fans. So could some tickets actually be taken away from real Spurs fans that are trying to go to the game? Or am I maybe not too informed on this situation? Like, is there a set amount that is reserved for the club employees, or could they actually be taking away tickets from people like yourself, Johnny, or Sean to go?
No, I think that these people have played an important role in the club.
They've come from the UEFA section, though, right?
Yeah, probably from the UEFA section, not from the fan section. And quite honestly, I think they're right. Why shouldn't the players, the staff who have worked tirelessly all season?
Does that include office staff and Spurs shop staff?
They're all part of
all full-time employees.
Oh wow, fair play. That's brilliant.
I don't know if like the people that pour beer and stuff on the game day. I don't know if they're
part-time. They're contract workers.
They're contract workers, right? So
I think the car park attendant is trying to get a ticket as we speak. I think it's a good thing, and it makes people look. This should be inclusive, right? These people work hard for the club.
Yeah.
It's not just about working on the day of the game. It's all the events and the stuff that goes on. The corporate events inside the stadium every day of the week. There's a lot of that goes on, the hiring of the rooms and stuff like that. And I think it's only right that they should be part and parcel of the success. Because let's be honest, it's been 41 years since we've had European success, and 53 years before that when we beat Wolves in the two-legged final. So, I think it's a great gesture. And it looks good. And let's be honest, right? I don't know if this is Vinay, but out there, they had scarves on all the seats for all the fans that were out in Bodo. We had the flags and everything for the game against Bodo and the home leg. Now this gesture is the club finally waking up. We will see.
Or at least just showing some sense of sensibility. Sean, you wanted to come in on?
Yeah, from small
classy touch by the club, Sean.
Yeah, I think so. Look, I'll be entirely honest. I'm not going to sit here and overstate it. Like, I think that the club have done really well in that bit, and also on a comparative basis, it makes him look, as Johnny was saying, it makes him look like a legend versus the alternative to Jim Ratcliffe. But like, the bar is pretty low for if we can bring ourselves to Jim Ratcliffe. The bar's not like high. He's a complete donut of a bloke, and the things that he's done to that club. If Daniel Levy had done those things, stripping the Christmas bonuses of all the match stewards, all that stuff. I mean, the outrage in Tottenham would have been apoplectic, I think, with the fans, especially online. It'd be interesting to see if people in the Levy out on the Levy outside are kind of willing to at least say it's fair, that's a decent shout. But also at the same time, it's not like I'm not going to go overboard and make out like it's a massive deal. It's probably cost Daniel Levy, or probably cost Tottenham like 50 grand or something, right? Or maybe whatever, 100 grand, which is 3 days of Timo Werner's wages. So let's not kind of overstate the impact here. But in terms of a gesture, it's a good thing. And yeah, like as I say, I think the bigger story here is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe looks like an absolute toe rag to his staff. He treats them with real disdain.
I definitely think, they've looked at the situation and they've gone, hang on, this could be a good opportunity for some good PR for me, considering the backlash I've faced this season. But in general, I think, to Johnny's point, I think they've all helped contribute us get here in one way or another, and they do deserve the opportunity to go out there and cheer the boys on. And I think also when you look at maybe in years gone by, maybe there's a lot of leaks and that coming out of the club. I think by doing gestures like this, you actually buy a bit of loyalty from people, so to speak. And maybe you stop them leaks coming out of the club moving forward. Maybe they go a bit more above and beyond for you than maybe what they previously have done and stuff. So I think in terms of, for the staff, I think, because that's at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want everybody pulling in one direction. And I think it goes away to doing that. And hopefully we see more of that maybe moving forward. But also, I think you combine it with the little touch for the fans away in Bodo Glimt. Now, I know people can say, look, it's a fucking €15 scarf. At the end of the day, I think it's a nice touch, to say, look, lads, thank you very much. We understand what you spent out here, the dedication, to be able to get out here. Thank you very much for getting out here. We're all here as one thing. And I think, again, maybe a nice touch. Or maybe with this new guy coming in, maybe he's spoke to Daniel Levy and says, look, you need to bridge the gap now with the fans. You need to bridge the gap with the staff inside the club. And you have to start doing these things. And maybe he's come in and maybe being able to explain the benefits why to Daniel Levy, rather than you coming out and saying, this is the way it is and it's up to you whether you like it or lump it. I think, by doing little things like this, I think when Tottenham do eventually come into a little bit of trouble, say financially or whatever, maybe he buys himself a little bit of grace with the fan base and stuff like that with touches like this. So, look, I think in general, it's a good thing. And I'm glad the club have done that, because everybody who works inside is important.
Yeah, fair point. I mean, they do have to, in a sense, continue to just log themselves through these, terrible, sort of seasons and whatnot. Whereas maybe the players, we know are very, very well compensated, and maybe in comparison to sometimes the full-time staff who do just have to, power through even when everything is toxic and negative. And, there hasn't really been that success to bring maybe a bit of joy around the place. They probably do deserve an opportunity like this. I'm just not fully aware, of the whole situation of how tickets are allocated. So for a second, when I was talking to Jay before the show, I was curious whether, they would actually, in a sense, be taking away tickets from anybody that was trying to go to the game. And I wouldn't know if every single full-time employee is actually a fan of the club. But again, I'm speaking from someone who's not really aware.
Could you imagine being a United employee, though, right? You know, you've got redundancy potentially on the table. So you're told you might be losing your job. And then also you're going to have to go into a ballot to see if you're lucky enough to be picked to go to the Europa League final. I mean, it's a double whammy, innit? You know, and it's sort of like with United, where they're at and where we're at, you need people pulling in one direction to drag you out of it. And I think United will have bigger problems off the back of the way they're handling all this. They might not even win it yet, and they made themselves look like idiots. So hopefully, you know, we can win it and push forward.
True. Let's wrap up with a palate cleanser here with Manar Solomon. His future will be a big talking point over the summer after he's done very well at Leeds United. He's had a massive season on loan there, 10 goals, 13 assists in 41 games, and has been a key part of getting them back to the Premier League. They'll 100% try to sign him again for a new campaign in the Premier League. He's still got 3 years left on his Spurs contract. The big question is, though, coming into this season, was whether he would stay fit, and fair play, he has done exactly that. So what do we think, boys? Do we want to maybe take another look at Solomon in this preseason, you know, potentially look to try to keep him instead of cashing in on him? Would you rather we cash in on him? I'm a big fan of former Shakhtar Donetsk players, but, you know, I'm curious what you guys have to say, you know, on Solomon. Is it just an opportunity to cash in, or could we actually bring him in, give him another shot at Spurs?
I mean, look, I've done posts and tweets on this. I'm probably in the minority, but I think, you know, having come from a long injury, a serious injury, the Spurs sent him out to Leeds to try and get match time, and he has exceeded expectations. 11 goals, 10 assists, 71% involvement, the highest in Leeds history. For me, all day long, he comes back and is given the chance of pre-season for the new manager. But I think in reality, because what we're going to do, we're going to end up selling a 25-year-old who takes on players, who scores goals from outside the box, something we don't have. We don't have anyone, really, apart from Papa Sarr, who scores goals from outside.
Championship teams, though, Johnny.
Listen, yeah, you've got to get from the Championship progression to the Premier League, or when you're getting fit to play in the Championship, you can only play what's in front of you. I've heard it from Jared Bowen, Ollie Watkins, Jack Grealish. You could go on. There's a whole list of...
There's also 3 teams that come up every year and go straight back down again.
And to Sean's point, too, like Dan James.
What you're saying is you wouldn't even give him a chance, but there's mindset. For me, you bring him in pre-season training. Other than that, you sell him for 17 million, which you can't. You can buy half a player for. But I think that's what will end up happening. He'll end up going to Leeds, and he'll probably have a good career. But for me personally, I would bring him back pre-season and let the new manager have a look at him. That's my opinion. For what it's worth.
I was just going to say, though, like to Sean's point, like it is the Championship, and we must remind ourselves of that. Like Dan James has the same exact numbers as he does, and I don't think anybody rates Dan James really, you know, to any high degree.
It's a never-ending list of players. Like no disrespect, Johnny, you're calling out the exceptions to the rule, not the rule itself, right? The people that were like Dele Alli, another example, right? Players that
shit, but that's
no. But there's like 70 players that come up every year from the Championship, and they go straight back down again. And they've all probably had good years the year before to have been in the top 3 or the top 2, and then won the playoffs to come up. And they all go straight back down again, and most of them don't even get more than like 15 points in the team. So like. I think you sell Manar Solomon if you can get like 15, 12. I mean, I would have taken 12 million, but if you can get like 17, 18 million quid for him, bite your hand off. He's not good enough for what we're trying to do.
Are we saying that no, you know, there aren't no highlight players that come from the Championship that could make it to the Premier League?
That's not what I'm saying at all. I just say I've seen Manar Solomon. I've seen him in the Premier League. I've seen him at Fulham. I've seen him at Tottenham. I've seen him at Shakhtar. I don't think he's good enough. I think he's good enough at Tottenham.
When you saw him at Spurs before he got injured, he had an outstanding game for Burnley. Remember when he got 2 assists before he got injured the next game?
I mean, okay.
I'm just saying, you know. He went on a run, scoring
against Burnley, who were
everybody did pretty well against Vincent Kompany. Yeah.
What about the goals he scored for Fulham before he got injured?
He scored. Everyone makes out like he had this ridiculous run. He scored like 3 goals in 4 games. Like, you know, Brennan Johnson did that, and we don't talk about that nicely about Brennan Johnson. I just like the team. You're talking about the Burnley game. Burnley were a team that came up and they went straight back down again under Vincent Kompany. So like, I just don't. It's another example of like he's probably slightly better than the Championship level.
Right, he'll come round, Dave. Dave, he'll come round because he said the same about Jonathan David, and he wasn't sure about Esley.
You were saying the same thing about Jonathan David. What you're talking about?
No.
Do you know what?
It's about opinions. That's why we love football.
No, this one is funny to finish on. It is.
I sort of do sit on Johnny's side of things. I think when it comes
you can
to
both be wrong if you want. It's fine. I don't mind.
we can be mud brothers, Johnny, on this one. But I think, look, when I look at Manor Solomon, I think the big thing around him was his injury. I'm not sure it was I'm not sure it was around his ability. I do think the ability's there. You know, I'll go back to the games he played against Real Madrid in the Champions League. You know, he was absolutely unbelievable. He was good at Shakhtar. And look, I know people bring up, well, Harry Winks had a world day against Real Madrid. What did he do since? And I take that to a point. Players can have a one-off great game. But I think with Manor Solomon, you've got to remember, we signed him off the back of him being injury-prone at Fulham the season before. Then he comes to Tottenham. He gets in the team, all of a sudden he's injured. So I think the big thing around Manor Solomon was maybe to loan him out this season and see whether he would produce and get back to levels or whether he wouldn't. And I think, more so to go and prove his fitness. And I think to a large degree, I think he's done that. And for me, I think we've got absolutely nothing to lose by looking at him in pre-season. We look at a lot of the quality that we've had out wide in general this season. If our forward line was producing unbelievable numbers and we were ripping teams apart, I would be of the opinion of Sean's, bang average, get rid of them. The reality is our forward line is fucking bang average. And that's why I would sit here and I would say, off the season Manor Solomon has had, I would give him pre-season and I would judge it from there. Me personally, I wouldn't be so quick to just jump in and sell him. If we had much better quality in the forward line, I would be of that opinion. But because it's so bang average, I question, would Solomon produce more on a regular basis than Udebur? I think so. Would he produce more than Tal? I think so. More than Johnson in terms of creativity, a lot more. And I think that's where I say right now, I look at him.
I just don't even know if I'm in Sean's boat where I actually do like Manor Solomon, but I don't think the numbers are really like that eye-dropping or eye-catching or anything. Like the fact that I just had to do a little bit of research, very quick ones, but the fact that Dan James is on the same numbers as him, like I don't rate Dan James whatsoever, right? And like that really does show to me the level of the championship that someone like him is also producing the same numbers.
I'm pretty sure Koleosho at Burnley had an absolute ripper of a year in the Championship 2-3 years ago before he came up, and then I liked Koleosho. I thought he was dangerous, but like he did nothing at the he did nothing in terms of output. I just think that,
or even like a Somerville, like a lot of people do, and he came to West Ham and did nothing. Like
great example.
I heard the same shit about Adam Walton. Exactly the same shit when I was banging on about Adam Walton, right? Oh, he's not good enough for Spurs. If he was that great, why is none of the big clubs coming in for him? I hear it all the time.
But Adam Walton hasn't played in the Premier League. Manor Solomon has.
It's a snobbery. No,
Manor Solomon has had two different teams in the Premier League, Johnny. It's not an unknown entity. Mate. It's not an unknown entity. Manor Solomon has played in the Premier League. Blackburn, not good enough. That's what they said. You're using names. You're using players that you're picking. I'm saying, but those players were unknown entities in the Premier League. They came up and they surprised the upside. But for every one of those that you've mentioned, there are hundreds of those that don't. But Manor Solomon has been in the Premier League. He's been in the Premier League. He shined. You're saying he was shit in the Premier League, and I'm sorry, I don't.
The 2 seasons in the Premier League, he was injured. But he had massive injuries for most
injury problems. But all I'm saying to you is that when I looked at Adam Walton and I'm saying, look at his performance, and they go, yeah, but it's in the Championship. I hear it. It's not you, Sean. It's football per se. It's clubs. Spurs looked at Jared Bowen, not good enough. Looks at this player, not good enough. He's in the Championship. And then you're picking the exceptions to the rule. They buy players from France and go and spend £20 million more and think, oh, yeah, he'll do. And he turns out to be a dud.
If we kept him, though, would we be blocking the pathway or the chance, really, of bringing in like a Jared Bowen and Mbumo, something like that of actual proven?
No, hang on, Jack. It's a great question because Johnny has been telling me for the last. Johnny's been telling me for the last 2 months.
We need to do a Solomon emergency podcast this weekend. Sorry,
Johnny's been saying we shouldn't be. Everyone's been saying we're cock blocking Mikey Moore, and yet with Manor Solomon, we're suddenly okay with it, but not with the
money. We've already got the money. We've already paid him. He's already part of the squad. We've already paid for him.
You still cop block. You could sell him for 17, go back to Bayern Munich and say, we'll give you 20 and a big sell-on fee. And
what
today's question.
What can you get for 17 million? You couldn't even get half a Helga. Come on.
True.
Yeah.
Well,
It sounds like we need to do a whole podcast on Monor Solomon, this weekend or something.
We need a scout report, Jack.
Yeah, maybe. Well,
How
that might open a can of worms.
How many Premier League minutes has Manor Solomon played, in your opinion?
It was like 2,500. In the Prem. I think he's played like 2,500 this season in the Championship.
Not a lot. I don't think.
Just waiting for the page to load.
I think he had a
Prem, we
massive
know
injury
that
at
he was,
Fulham, didn't he? And then he was out for the full season then with us after the Burnley game.
Hang on, no. He played. So when he was at Fulham, he missed 17 games on the bounce. But before that, he played from the 3rd of January against Leicester. He came back, and then he played the next 20 games. The next 20 games. I can share the screen if you'd like, so we can go through it. But he's played loads of minutes in the Prem, and then at Tottenham he played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He played 7 games in the Prem for Tottenham before he got his meniscus injury, and he played 1, 2, 3, 4. What was that? So that's he's played 27 games in the Premier League, and
it's not a lot, is it?
Over 2 seasons, it's not. No.
Yeah, he's a 50% guy. Well, he's a 40% guy, but he's played enough minutes. And how many goals did he score? Let's have a look. See.
Well, I think that's what's raised the question is the fact that he did have a healthy season. Maybe then just raise the question: do you take that risk? My thing is that if Sonny, let's say, doesn't leave this summer, and then also we are looking for a Sonny replacement / Johnson competition, is Monor Solomon really that guy? I don't think so. Yeah.
So he scored 4 goals,
much better.
4 goals and 2 assists in 28 appearances in the Premier League. It's hardly earth-shattering.
No, it's not earth-shattering, but like I said, I look at our forward line. I do question: is Solomon better than some of the current options that we've currently got? And I would make the argument. I think he probably is, in my opinion. Does he? Do others have greater potential? Yes, but right now, because like I said, the forward line has been bang average. For whatever you're going to sell him for, I would rather take a look at them and just be sure.
I'm not comparing, Danny. Sorry, Danny, I'm not comparing what they do in this league to that league. I'm not an idiot. I fully understand that the Championship's here and the Premiership's there. But if you look at the level of the Championship, if you speak to most people, the level of the Championship is higher than some of the bloody leagues around Europe, right? There's a lot of competition. It's a very competitive league, and it's a hard league. Ain't an easy league.
He scores 1 in every 5 for Israel. So 43 games, 7 goals. He doesn't.
How many assists?
No assists for Israel.
No, I'm not talking about that. I said in the Premier League. How many assists?
No, 0 assists.
He had 2 for Tottenham against Burnley, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. 2 for Tottenham. 2 for Tottenham against Burnley and 4 goals for Fulham. Yeah, 4 and 2. And then in the performance by competition in the Premier Liga, whatever that is,
Portuguese league, right?
55 appearances, 14 and 4. In the Ligat Hal, I guess that's the Israeli league.
14 goals and 4 assists, is that?
Yeah, so in about I don't know 200 or so appearances, 5,500, 150, 160. Yeah, about 200 appearances.
30 years of age. He's just 25, I think. Is he 25?
Yeah, he's 25. He's 25.
Yeah.
I just think, right, for what you're going to reach,
it might be worth having a look at on the tour.
Have a look.
For the sake of 15 million, just to be sure, why not give him pre-season?
That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying sign him up and give him a brand new contract, right? All I'm saying is we've got him for nothing, right? All I know is he takes on players, he beats players, and he scores goals from outside the box. Something we are lacking in all of our wingers right now.
It'd be lovely if he was doing that against decent opposition.
Yeah. That was a good one to finish on.
Sean wins. I give up.
Who knew Solomon would be so
I just want to peek. Listen, let me tell you something. He's going to say, get lost, because he wasn't supported when he was here. There's no way he's going to come back. So I don't think it's going to even be a conversation. That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
we do have one member's comment that we'll get to at the end of the show. I forgot to post that until very, very late, but Artist T has dropped us plenty of questions for Dave and I to answer. But I think now's a good time, though, to give Shawnee and John their opportunity. So, Sean, Spurs Talk Show, will we be getting a Bilbao vlog?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll be doing something. I'm toying with the idea of taking out the laptop and the like a mic and all that stuff and doing a live stream from a bar somewhere or a sauna or whatever. You know,
you're not getting a ticket now.
What's that?
Do you not have a ticket now?
I've got a ticket. I was going to get there Tuesday night, and then I thought Wednesday morning go out for a little bit of tapas and see if I could see if I could hook up the laptops and go live. Apparently, from the ball, I'm going to go fight a ball, and
there's a ball ring out there. I can see. You can just see loads of pissed up Tottenham and Man U fans thrown into an arena by the locals and let loose one young bull.
And just to keep in team with Sean's European away days, you know, he'd be out there looking for his señorita. So,
listen, you know, obviously, always looking for a little bit of charm, always looking to have a little bit of fun, chatting girls up and stuff, be a bit of fun. But you definitely can expect something from the Spanish side. And I appreciate you guys for having me on. I really enjoyed the chat.
No, great job, Sean.
No, thank you for giving up your time. And look, you know, we cancelled this yesterday, so thank you for making it work today, lad. Really, really appreciate it. Guys, make sure you get over and check out Spurs Talk Show if you don't know. If you don't know who he is, I don't know where you'd be living, but if you don't, make sure you get across there, check it out, and smash that subscribe button. Also, on to you, Johnny. We've got a couple of your links in here. Let me get the first one. We've got your Instagram.
Cheers, buddy. I've got the same for my tickety talk.
Twitter. And then
my Twitter. Yeah, my Johnny X. Just to say, Lucas Bergvall, clean sweep of the awards, rising baller, Swedish superstar. Yeah, all the superlatives, right? The kid's going all the way to the top. Thought it then. Nothing's changed my mind. But I don't think he should be starting unless it's 100% fit, however much I think. But I think he's had an incredible first season for an 18-year-old coming into this club. And, you know, when you look back at that unfortunate game against Karabag where he finally got on, and was it Basuma? I can't remember who it was that got sent off straight away. And
Dragusin.
Yeah, Dragusin got sent off and he was off the pitch after about 7 minutes. And then he had that unfortunate game against Galatasaray where he was literally bullied all game. And to come back from that and to produce some of the performances he's produced in the second half of the season tells me great mentality, great, physical and technical attributes. It would be lucky to keep hold of him past 21, 22, I believe. But good luck to him and congratulations. And congratulations to Josh Keeley and Jamie Donnelly for making the final. And it is possible to go to see them in that final for Orient at 1 o'clock kickoff because the Spurs kickoff is not till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it is possible to go and see that and then go and see the other one. I'm going to be attempting to do the double that day.
Nice.
Big game from Keeley for them last night, you know, and Donnelly's had a superb campaign as well. And congratulations to them. Be interested to see what their future holds this summer.
Quickly, he's someone that I do want to see. Everyone, when we talk about Leighton Orient, we've got to bring Jamie Donnelly back, see what his level is. I think that we might have it in Josh Keeley. I sit there and I look and think he might be someone that could be worth a look at in the summer as well.
And he was unbelievable against Man City in the FA Cup as well. Let's not forget, you know.
Yeah,
Keeley versus Kinski.
He's got his first senior call-up, so congratulations to that full Irish international it's going to be.
Well, if he gets ahead of, the other goalkeepers, they might just be bringing him up to have a look at him. But there's a friendly there, so I think it's against Senegal, so he might, might just get a look in it. But I hope he makes his debut. It'll be absolutely brilliant. But look, guys, I want to say a massive thank you to you two guys for giving up your time. I really appreciate it. We're going to let you go, and we're going to finish off with doing some members' questions. So appreciate your time, gentlemen.
Appreciate you guys. Love you all. Take care.
Great job, both of you.
Come on, you Spurs.
And it's goodbye from me.
We have
big up, guys.
Yeah, great job from both of them, and I think we'll have them on next time if they're available for next Tuesday. As we're wrapping up here, thank you so much, Donna Vision, saying King Solomon will reign again. Come on, you Spurs in the final. I didn't know that we would actually get such a good discussion and kind of back and forth. It was very split as well. I'm kind of in Sean's boat, Dave's in Johnny's boat, almost very suited that we were on the left and the right side of the screen. Really, it was actually quite perfect to look at. But I think, what's fair is, and I think what everybody agreed with was, give him a shot, give him a chance in the preseason, see what he's about. Hopefully no injuries or anything like that. And then we can rehash and re-engage that conversation for the summer. It looked like there was some good back and forth on it. So I look forward to doing it again. Just wanted to say hello to Rakdos Madness from earlier, who did join the stream. In case you're still listening, Alan, big up to you, my friend. I saw Lazy 8 popped in as well. Big up to Nico as well, who joined us. Big up to you, sir. Hennessy, member for 29 months, saying, big up, gents. 2 weeks left, and I'm a free man. Come on, you Spurs. Hope the panel is well. I think it was a very good show, Hennessy, and good to have you with us here. And listen, just count down the weeks until, you're free, get to enjoy a summer. I'm assuming he'll be done with university. I think that's what it's about, right? Yeah, he'll be done with university. And then you can have a free summer, be a free man, and then hopefully be a champion of Europe as well, all at the same time. Hennessy, big up to you, my friend. Thanks for all the support over the years as well. And maybe we can get you on some panels over the summer too, if you do have the time for it. And then last and certainly not least, Dave, we're going to answer some of Artist T's questions here that he's asked us. And I apologize. I meant to do this earlier. I actually was even thinking about it before I went and took this dog on a walk, that I meant to put out a post for you guys. But as always,
that's usually my job. I take responsibility. I fucked up. I'm still in holiday mode.
we'll take one for the team here, Dave. But if you are a member of the channel, you can always ask us questions that we reserve time for at the end of the show. It is a decent perk, I think, for you guys. There's a way to wrap it up, and also if there's anything that you felt like we might have missed, that we can answer for you guys. So Artist T here saying, what would you do for this final? A back three again, Van de Ven, Romero, and Danzo's pretty good. I think you kind of answered that earlier, Dave, saying that's just, you can't be doing that for a final. You can't just be making a whole shape change and formation change. That you don't want to do what you did against Everton.
No. And if he did do that and we got hammered, Arch T would be the first one to call him out for, getting it wrong and changing the formation and stuff like that. Honestly, look, it's absolutely madness to not train in a certain way. People go, they train in different formations. They don't. They, generally now with managers having shorter times, they train them in the way they want them to play. And the reality is, if he changes up the formation, you're going into it not playing that formation. Look what happened against Everton, and it'll be rinse and repeat, if not worse, against Man United. Can't afford to do that. Later on in the game, if we're seeing out elite, no problem. Start like that, big trouble.
And then he says, if we win, would one of you wear a leotard as a forfeit? Weird, but there should be some sort of bet involved. Listen, I said I'm preparing my ass cheeks to have a flare up my ass for the whole season. And in terms of a leotard, might be TMI, but people that are still listening can have a bit of a chuckle from this. I used to go to a few of those Berlin clubs back in the day, and you do have to wear some pretty spicy outfits. So believe it or not, I have been in a leotard in the past. I just realized we win hopefully, or lose. We may get to see Dave cry after saying we'll never see him do that after the Ipswich game. Thoughts on this? I think Dave and I would be, I don't even know what our reactions will be. I'll probably have the shades on, to at least, have some of the tears be blocked from people's eyes. But I think it will be all types of emotions, really, if we win the final. I think we might go through all of them. Yeah.
Do you know what it is? You know me, Jack. Like, I've been tying up, to go out to Bilbao or sort of stay around and spend it with people that, I love and I enjoy spending it with. And I've sort of weighed it up. Yeah, I could be out there with thousands of Spurs fans, but after 2 hours, it dies down. You're sort of left and you're there. Okay, that was fun. But I think, for me, spending it with my dad, celebrating, it would be an unbelievable moment for the two of us to have, as Tottenham fans and stuff like that, because it really has, created a great bond, brought us together, maybe made us argue at times, and stuff like that over the club and everything else. But it's something that is consistent, that has kept us talking throughout our life and stuff like that. And for me, I think if we win it, I think I will cry. It's been 41 years, and spending it with you, all the people that that tune into us, and then getting to go and finally relax and celebrate it with my dad. I mean, yeah, it probably will make me cry. I mean, it's what I'm in the business to do, which is win trophies. That's why I don't tolerate mediocrity.
No, I think I completely agree with Dave on there. And then also Artist T saying, how was London? Did you guys try the pubs I was suggested? Kind of was, a bit busy where I was hanging out with my mom and then also, making some time for the game. So unfortunately, I didn't get to do any of your suggestions there. Artist T was
Coke is
kind of
Coke.
all over the place, really.
Coke is Coke, no matter what pub you go into. So I left the pub crawl in Jack's hands. I just followed.
I didn't really, except for the actual Spurs days, I didn't really do as much, sort of pub hitting as I probably would have if I was maybe on my own, because that's my kind of culture when I'm over there. I was doing maybe I would say some more grandiose things, like going to the plays, going to the shows, going to some museums and things like that, which I had a great time for it. Don't get me wrong, but I was a bit more cultured than I usually am, Artist T. So next time I'm over, I definitely will. He's saying these 3 injuries are exactly why we should have brought in Eze or something of that ilk. Imagine his level of creativity in that final. Who should take that role or creativity? I think we answered that where we were discussing, the midfield, what Ange should go for, what sort of adaptations he would make. But, you look at, again, that signing, over the summer, Spurs still to this day, I feel like are ruining just that big sort of proven marquee signing over the summer. We never really got one of any kind. Like the fact that, what would you say, like Bergvall might have been the best one, but he was the one that we spent some of the least amount of money on. Then maybe Odebear was supposed to be one of the bigger signings, but he also, again, has had decent moments, but then also has maybe failed to really be as consistent as we would have liked. Solanke was the big marquee signing, but I think we all knew that we needed a striker. That was like a non-negotiable, really. So they needed to sign someone like that, and I think we were all crying out for someone like an Eze to come over the summer. It just didn't happen, man. And then he's saying, not to be a doomer, but I'm dreading a Maguire. Why are you even imagining that kind of stuff?
No, look, I
hope we win, but in big moments, there's always chaos involving United.
I think, look, in fairness, that's something we have to speak about heading into the game. I think we've conceded the most goals from corner kicks and set pieces this season in England. One thing that is a massive threat is Harry Maguire from corner kicks. Look, I know we slag him off. I know we say he turns like a fridge. He's got a mallet forehead, everything else, right? But at the end of the day, he is a threat from set pieces. And I think we have to, we have to be wary of that heading into the final. I do understand it.
Then he says, lastly, what's everyone's meal plans for today? You know me, man. It's tacos. I was practically getting the shakes while I was over in the UK, probably as far away from tacos as I could ever really go. So, it's going to be, pretty much as much replenishment as I can, and all the tacos that I missed while I was gone.
Yeah, Jack had it. Although, how was your fish and chips? You did like the British fish and chips,
I did love the
right?
fish and chips. I mean, believe me, in all seriousness, it was nice to actually eat different things for once. I'm a very, very rooted man. And, even though I don't really have any real pickiness apart from like a couple of things, I do try and eat mostly everything. But it was nice, to sort of take a break from maybe what I normally would cook for myself. And also when you're on vacation, it's nice to not have to cook.
That piece of fish was huge. And I think you got the medium. Me and Dermot went back there the next night and he got the large. You want to see this show? The whole box was full of fish. It was unbelievable, lad.
Yeah, I could have picked it up and slapped myself in the face with it. It was that honestly, big.
It was ridiculous. And I was looking at you and I was like, he's definitely not going to eat all that. And the chips, and he demolished it. I couldn't believe it. But, DJ AK, close your ears, because I know he's slagging me the other day saying, Dave, you're always eating burger and chips. Well, that happens to be what is for my dinner tonight. Homemade burger and chips. So that's what I'm having.
And he says, and a side note in response to Dave saying I was singing Ange's song, the only way I'll be back on the Ange train is if we smash United. Ange takes one of the coldest pictures in history on the field. And in the press conference, he kicks his legs up with the trophy and raises his middle finger to the press saying, as you lot were saying. Unless that happens, I'm with Sam. Thank you, F you, and goodbye.
But does that not apply to you doing it to you as well, Art Steve? Because you are one of them huge critics. So if he sits up there and does that, that's also to you. How are you going to take it?
It'd be pretty cool if Ange did the Sergio Conceição cigar thing. After that, that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
A bit of islands in the stream, Ange doing the grinding. I mean, it'd be perfect.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you for making this a great show. Thanks for sticking with us. We had a lot of people in the house tonight. If you can, smash the like button on your way out. Tomorrow, join me for the pre-match build-up. Dave will be there for the watch-along. Would love to see you guys there with us. It's one last chance before we enter the big one on Wednesday. So prepare yourselves, get ready, get all the anxiety, get all the worries out maybe tomorrow, and then let's try to get all behind this team on Wednesday. But thank you, guys. It's good to be back. Good to get back into the flow of things, and we'll see you all tomorrow for the pre-match build-up and for the watch-along. So please do join us. Friday evening, we don't have too many Premier League games on a Friday, so we'd love to have you there.
Lastly, I want to say a massive thank you to Dan Coys, Adrian Brown, DJ AK, Vince Vega. What a character. Who am I missing?
Brad Matthews was there with us.
Brad Matthews. You know, all these people who came out their way to come down and spend a bit of time with us, spend a day with us, make our trip over there memorable and special. So thank you to all you guys. Guys, yeah, look, big game tomorrow, you know. Let's see look, it's going to be a long watch. So I would say to people, whatever your vice is, make sure you have it ready. Good food. We'll just vibe out because it's all about next Wednesday. We are 6 days away from potentially changing the course of this football club. So, guys, see you back here tomorrow. As always, come on,
you Spurs.
You Spurs.
See you tomorrow, everybody. Have a good one. Have a good rest of your evenings.
Big up, Dan.